I know there was a lot of criticism thrown Weiss's way for the job he did on the field. We'll figure out later on what's going on with the off-field stuff. But the fact of the matter is he's no longer with the program. Clayton and I sort of hit on that the other day when we did the Thursday show. But I wanted to kind of take it this direction and talk about, is this an opportunity? Is this an opportunity to kind of either expand on the things that Michigan's been doing, give themselves a different look, add a different look to the recruiting, to the offense, whatever it may be? I guess, Clayton, I'll start with you. I mean, now that there's the opportunity to add someone to this offensive coaching staff, which offensive line loaded, quarterback, a star, your running backs, you have both of them coming back, and you don't make a hire based on what you have for 1 year, but knowing the fact of the matter is there is an open position and it's an opportunity for Michigan to upgrade in some areas. But what area do you think specifically you might like to see Michigan explore a little bit more with this next hire?
Well, yeah, I do think Jim Harbaugh always looks at staff changes like that, whether or not it's a really good coach leaving. And, when you say Matt Weiss was criticized for, his performance on the field in terms of coaching, maybe in the TCU game, but I think people were pretty pleased with Michigan putting up, more points than they ever have in a season since 1904. I mean, it was a really good offense. So I thought he did a good job, him and Sharon Moore working well together. But I'll say this about the Michigan offense: the passing attack wasn't maybe as good as it could have been this year. And if you look at the track record of Matt Weiss, he's actually more of a run game guy than he is a pass game guy. And he was involved with some of the best run games in all of NFL history with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson there. Did a great job, added that element, but maybe Michigan could get a guy who's a little bit more suited to help the pass game out. I think that would really help this team. And as Chris has mentioned, some of those candidates out there, I think it is amazing now that we're at this point where Jim Harbaugh's 59. He's been in coaching a while. I know he started late, but he has a pretty good coaching tree at this point. There are a lot of guys out there with good backgrounds on either side of the ball that coached under him. You couple that with the Baltimore Ravens connections, another hint there to go check out the update over at thewolverine.com. And you have some good candidates, plus some people like Kurt Campbell, who's an analyst here, and maybe one of those quote-unquote rising stars that could step in if Michigan goes that direction. So I'd say maybe, somebody with a better pass game background would help Michigan out and could be an upgrade. Recruiting's another area. Matt Weiss didn't seem to be, he was still learning. I mean, it was midway through the season. He was talking about it at a press conference, saying how he didn't realize how big relationships were going to be in recruiting. He thought it was going to be more about the track record of how the team's playing on the field. Everyone knows it's a combination, and it might be more relationships than anything, as Steve Klinkscale and a bunch of other guys talk about when they talk about recruiting. So I think it's that maybe first and foremost recruiting, and there are some good recruiters on the pool of candidates, or at least a portion of those guys. So I think that could be something that could really add to Michigan's offense as well, especially the quarterback position, because you got J.J. McCarthy, and then a little bit of a question mark for the years following that.
I don't remember him saying that, and that blows my mind. You must have been there, and Clay was obviously at all of them. And what a boy, that's a joke. Not knowing that relationships are big in recruiting.
He said he didn't know he was gonna, and he didn't do this, but he's like, I'm not gonna play Fortnite with these guys until 11 at night, when I could be game planning. And I understand that stance, but
I get it too. But at the same time, everything about recruiting is relationships, with the exception now of NIL, which is huge. But that's insane. But he was not a good recruiter, flat out. And this is something that Jim Harbaugh is definitely going to be looking for, guys, when he goes out and gets a new coordinator. This is something that we were talking to somebody in the building about, and they said he wants a good young go-getter, somebody who has experience recruiting and somebody who can help in the pass game. It was interesting listening to Joel Klatt's podcast today, and he said, Sharon Moore was really the kind of the guy as going on as he understood it, that was calling more of the plays as the season went on. Matt Weiss was, as we said, the pass game coordinator a little bit and working with the quarterbacks, but he was also the red zone guy. And if there was one thing that we were complaining about this year at different times, it was Michigan's red zone offense. So get somebody there. I remember Jed Fish being outstanding down there, guys, some of the plays that he called. And we all remember the good shit Jed play against BYU, I think it was, when Jim Harbaugh turned to him and you could read his lips, and things like that. So They need to be better there. I think they will be. I think this is one of those hires that is going to be critical in terms of recruiting, because in this day and age, guys, Urban Meyer used to say it. We can hate Urban Meyer all we want to, but he said, I would never recruit a guy that wasn't a great recruiter, a very aggressive recruiter, because you can't have that in this day and age. And on that, maybe nothing else, but on that, I agree with him.
Yeah, that's $1 in the swear jar, by the way.
Sorry
for that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note also, this program's in a very different place than when Matt Weiss was hired. I mean, that was coming from it wasn't a rebuild, but it was a hard reset on the program coming off that COVID year. They got rid of Ben McDaniels, and it was an upgrade. I mean, compared to what was there before, but, and credit to Matt. I mean, you can give credit to Matt Weiss for his role in helping build Michigan to what it was. But the fact of the matter is like, and no disrespect to any of that, like a Kirk Campbell that's in the line for the job. I think he's got a bright future, and I think he'll probably be in an expanded role at Michigan at some point or elsewhere. But you have an opportunity here to kind of go in and like, you can shoot a little higher, I guess, and bring in someone with a more proven track record. And, sometimes you have to learn on the fly too. Some of those guys just kind of hit the ground running. I mean, Sharon Moore cut his teeth at Central Michigan, and Grant Newsome is a guy who, by all accounts has been good on the recruiting trail and kind of worked his way up. So there are different paths to that. But yeah, I mean, we say that Matt Weiss was in charge of the red zone and those types of things. Does that mean can we officially kind of put that Philly special play on him? Is that
I think so. Now that he's gone, you know what? It's all your fault, Matt. And no matter what else you did, it was funny. Somebody said, well, whatever he did, it couldn't be nearly as bad as that. And you know what? Yeah, it's probably not true, but what a terrible play call that was. And but Jim Harbaugh, it's like Jim Harbaugh said he approved it, and what he said, he took the blame for it. But Matt, we're going to pile that on you as well. We're going to throw a little more dirt on your grave on the way out. No, that's mean. But it was a terrible play. Yeah, but I'll say this: it wasn't great. There were times this year where it just wasn't. It looked like a hodgepodge of, it looked like when Josh Gaddis was here, and you're throwing stuff against the window and hoping or the wall and hoping it sticks. And so, you know what? Here we are. The next guy, we'll see how they do that. But as Klatt said, you know what? Give Sharon Moore some more duties. I love Sharon Moore. I think he's a great young coach. Like Klatt said, he said, I've blown away in talking to him and knowing where he cut his teeth and everything else, that this guy's more than capable. I'm comfortable with Sharon Moore taking the vast majority of the play calling duties next year.
Here's my one concern with that is that the offensive line is such an important position. Now, Sharon Moore has proven over the last 2 years, where he was co-offensive coordinator and then even more duties in 2022, with the same title, that he can do it. But I do think there is a little bit of a balance there, that when you start to give him even more, and by all accounts, he's done a great job. And then talking to EJ, he said he was probably the recruiter of the cycle if we had that award for Michigan. And he became a dad either again or for the first time. I don't remember exactly this year. So he's had a heck of a year. So he can take on a lot of responsibility, but you got to be a little careful there because, in between series and in between drives and things like that, you got to pay attention to the offensive line because there's so many intricacies there. But you also got to be planning for what you're going to do on the next drive. So it's a balance, and help him out with a guy that maybe comes in as pass game coordinator. But I agree, Sharon Moore has done a fantastic job, and just the way he's risen up the ranks here at Michigan has been, a testament to him, but also just kind of, a lot of these coaches that are coming up under Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, my final thought on this is that when you look at the potential candidates, I know that inherently the immediate thing people go to is, oh, well, it's got to be a quarterback's coach. And I don't know that necessarily needs to be the case. I mean, remember when Matt Weiss was hired, originally the plan was going to be for Jim Harbaugh to coach the quarterbacks. And then he hires Weiss and assigns him to that position. I am intrigued by the idea that they could have a candidate or two in mind that has experience developing and recruiting wide receivers, especially given the fact that I think you develop these guys that are on the roster first and foremost. I mean, you've got a guy in Darius Clemens who's 6'3", 6'4", Maurian Walker 6'4". You have a guy that can come in and develop those guys, and all of a sudden your red zone play calling gets a hell of a lot easier when you have these twin tower type of guys to go to. So I am intrigued by the idea of of a candidate that has experience in that regard. So we'll see what happens with that. Any other thoughts from you guys on the staff or just the offense in general?
I can't even imagine Brian Griese working for Jim Harbaugh, and I know his name's been mentioned too. He's a quarterbacks coach at San Francisco. Is he going to want to get out there and get after it recruiting? You know what? This guy's made a ton of money in the NFL and everything else, and as an analyst on different networks. So, and now he's in the NFL. Is he really going to want to come back here? I don't see that. I know his name's been brought up by a few times, and rightfully so. I think there's a little bit of interest there, but I do not see that happening.
And would that be the right move? I mean, Brian Griese's been in coaching for 1 year. He hasn't called any plays. And I hate this isn't hating on Brian Griese. I think he's done a good job there. You continue to see people rave about him on Twitter and, just following from afar. But he's also in a very quarterback-friendly system under Kyle Shanahan with a bunch of playmakers. He's navigated it well, looks like, with having a few different quarterbacks, including Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. But I think, that could be an option, but, and put that on the table. But I would go with somebody who's a little bit more experienced or has been here or something like that. But, I mean, hey, you got a national championship winning quarterback out there in the coaching ranks. You might as well at least shoot him a text. I know he's busy right now, though.
But we all know that they're holding out for Tom Brady anyway when he retires. So it's a moot point.
I saw a Photoshop of Brady with like a coaching headset and hat on, and
that's what he's going to want to do is come back and recruit. And let's see, what am I going to do with my $500 million here in my time now? I think I'm going to go out and recruit these kids from coast to coast and be a quarterbacks coach. So I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, Tom Brady, a man who just got divorced, mind you, is going to pass up the $35 million waiting on him at Fox whenever he decides to hang it up to come make like $750,000 and coach the quarterbacks
out of the goodness of his heart to help the alma mater.
Golly, he's a Michigan man.
That's right.
It would be legendary, and he wouldn't have to work that hard to recruit. I feel like. I mean, who wouldn't want to play for Tom Brady? But obviously, it's not going to happen.
This all depends on the money. If they'd say, "Thanks, Tom, but I'm going to take this $13 million NIL deal. Thanks anyway."